What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. Before I get into the introduction of the video, I just want to provide some reassurance that the technical difficulties that some of you had commented about in the previous video have been resolved. There were a couple of glitches and things that were taking place during that particular time, and I sincerely want to apologize to all of you for the things that you were experiencing with the last interview that was done. And my apologies once again, and of course that has been resolved, but I have a great video for you today. It is another interview today, continuing on with a series of interviews with different people. And today we're going to be interviewing Gina Barbara. I just want to mention that if you are not subscribed to this channel, please hit that subscribe button. Also, ring the notification bell so that you get notified when new content becomes available. And if you like the content that you're seeing, whether it's this interview or any other video that's been done on this channel, please give it a like or a thumbs up, because that's how the YouTube algorithm actually will spread the word to others that there's new content being posted on this channel. So we're going to be back here in a minute or so with Gina Barbara, and we're going to begin the interview, and I'll be turning the floor over to her. We are back. We are back now, and we have Gina Barbara with us in the Zoom room, and I'm going to let her kind of tell her story and explain a little bit about herself, as well as her disability, and kind of tell us a little bit about her life. So Gina, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you so much, Chris, for the invitation to do this interview. To start off, my name is Gina Barbara. I am 42 years old. I have cerebral palsy, and I live in Wantagh, New York, in Nassau County. I use a power wheelchair to ambulate. A little bit about my background. I have an associate's degree in office technologies, computer concentration from Briarcliff College. And I also have a bachelor's degree in rhetorical studies in the area of public advocacy, citizenship, and communications from Hofstra University. I started my life at pretty much since I was an infant. There was an accident that happened with an anesthesiologist giving me the wrong amount of anesthesia when I was a young infant. And this is the reason I got cerebral palsy. I went into seizures and convulsions. I ran 109 fever. The doctors told my parents I would never speak, I would never walk, I would never be any amount to society at all. Just the 2 degrees alone proves that that was totally false. Schooling was an adventure for me. When I started in kindergarten, I lived in Suffolk County in Lindenhurst, New York, where I was pushed literally through every educational system there is to man, starting in Deer Park, moving to Comac, which is just a little bit further west of Deer Park. Then I went from Deer Park to Elwood to Comac to Dix Hills for a period of time until I got to junior high school. When I reached junior high school, I was told that I can go to district schools, which was Lindenhurst at the time, but all these years I was going to other ancillary educational institutions and basically kept learning the same materials over and over and over again. It got very,
so it was repetitive.
Totally repetitive, and it was annoying. But it got to a point where I didn't even really want to go to school anymore, because I really wasn't learning anything. I wasn't being appreciated by my peers. I wasn't really being appreciated by the teachers, the paraprofessionals, anybody, until about, I'm going to say, 9th grade, when my district finally allowed me to going to a special school, and the name of that school was the Henry Viscardi School in Albertson, which is basically a work/school for individuals with disabilities, founded by a pivotal advocate, and his name was Dr. Henry Viscardi Jr., and he played a key aspect in getting a lot of the major legislations that are currently available to us now passed. So that's basically a little bit about my educational background. I was bullied in junior high school. They kept putting flats in my tires, gum in my hair. Every time I would struggle to get my locker open, somebody would come along and slam it shut. So I had a little bit of trial and tribune through my high school. I mean, through my junior high school and elementary educational careers. So it really was interesting to certain points. I enjoy sports. Sports is a big thing for me. At the age of 7, I was introduced to a disability sports organization. At the time was the Police Activity League, that is currently ran through the special needs unit, I'm sorry, in currently, but that Police Activity League was taken over in, I want to say 88, by a man named the late Richard Northorn, who passed away last year. But they had incorporated all kinds of sports: basketball, soccer, baseball, karate, golf, lacrosse, soccer, floor hockey. The biggest one and the most competitive one to this day is now Long Island sled hockey, ran by a gentleman named Frank Martin, who unfortunately Brian Blomquist, who ran the program for 25 years, passed away as well last year. But the hockey team travels around the United States and Canada and any other country that basically wants to play, we will go. Sled hockey, for people that are interested in knowing what sled hockey is, it's a sport for people with disabilities and able-bodied alike, where you sit on a sled that, for visual, would be the size of maybe, I don't know, it's like a metal plank that's has a seat in the middle, a bucket seat with a back, or so it depends on the ability level. Some have a high back, some have a middle back, some don't have a back at all. And you propel yourself on the ice with knock hockey-like sticks that have picks in the middle on the bottom of them. So you have the picks to steer the sled, and you have the actual stick to hit the puck on the opposite end of that stick. So it's very, very fun, it's challenging, and when you get on the sled, your disability totally goes away.
That sounds cool. I would do something like that.
I played that sport from 1994 until almost 2011, and I retired because it was getting too much for me to physically transfer on and off the sled. And throughout my years in the sports, I really started to learn about politics and how the disability community really is, I don't want to say excluded because that would be the wrong word, but really in a kind of trivial setting where you knew that there was issues, but you didn't know exactly, there were so many issues that, and when you're young, you don't really focus, you don't really understand full-fledged what evolved throughout history in order to get to the point that you're at. I don't know if I'm explaining that properly, but I think I sort of hit on where I wanted to go with that. It is very important for me. The reason why I got into advocacy is, I think partially because of the experience I went through in school, where I was eating lunch in the nurse's office. I couldn't participate in gym. I couldn't really go and participate in any kind of sports because they weren't accessible. couldn't even go to gym because there were steps up to the gym, and then there was steps down to the cafeteria. So that's warranted me to eat my lunch either in a classroom or in the nurse's office.
That's
Who
crazy.
in the world wants to eat lunch in a nurse's office with sick people? I didn't.
Not me.
So finally, after about 3 years of arguing with the Lindenhurst Junior High School at that time, they did build a ramp. However, the steepness of that ramp was just ridiculous. And back when I was in junior high school, we literally had to keep using my manual chair because I didn't have a power chair back when I was in junior high school. It wasn't until high school, almost college, that I received a power wheelchair. So I was using a manual, and the steepness of that ramp, I'm going to tell you, was scary every time you went down it. I still remember it to this day. I don't want to envision anybody ever trying to go down that again. But unfortunately, it was accessible under the ADA, so you couldn't really complain about the steepness of it. As long as it was there, they were in compliance. So, you know, wasn't the greatest, but it had to work. What else got me involved in advocacy was the transition from the public school sector to the Viscardi School. The Viscardi School is a very, very special place. It's not about who is the population of the school being, it is strictly for individuals with disabilities. You know, when I first got in there, I really didn't know what to expect. I didn't think I was going to make many friends. I really didn't know, like, okay, now everybody is disabled. Now I'm going to get singled out as being the outcast, because all these people generally started at the Viscardi School since they were like 2 years old. Literally from kindergarten all the way up through high school, you did have the ability to go to Viscardi. But the problem for me was we were lied to when I was middle-aged, saying that we had to pay a subsequent fee, which my family couldn't afford. So that was strike number one. Strike number two was they told me that I would have to pass a test. And honestly, with the curriculum and the education that I was receiving, I didn't think that I would have the ability to pass a test for admission or anything like that. So that was the conundrum there to get into the Viscardi School. But once I did hit the Viscardi School, gave me my drive to want to advocate for others, because that place is just amazing, without a better word. They were able to give me more mobility. They were able to give me a little bit more independence. They were able to give me that sports. I was able to participate in the wheelchair basketball team there. I was able to participate in student council there, something I never got to do in public school. So it definitely was a bright shining light at the right time for me. And I took that opportunity from Viscardi. Being Dr. Viscardi passed away. Literally, we were the last graduating class that Dr. Viscardi spoke at graduation. So I know he always said that there was never inability. It was always abilities. It was never disabilities. So I kind of took that and ran with it. And, you know, a lot of people have the conception that because you're disabled and you're an advocate, that everything that you do is driven, like self-centered. And I just want to be the person to kind of let everybody know that it's exactly the opposite. It's not that at all. It's not about me. It's about the larger community. Some of the committees and the volunteer work that I have done in the disability realm. Firstly, I have volunteered and been a participant of the Empire State Games for the Physically Challenged, which is now the Nassau County Empire State Games for the Physically Challenged. Due to funding with New York State, funding for the program was discontinued by former Governor David Patterson, who had a disability himself and a visual
That's right, he
impairment.
did.
And he had the audacity and wherewithal to cut this very vital program. So at the time when Patterson cut the program, Ed Mangano, who was the county executive of Nassau County at the time, said, "Oh, this is not okay. This is not permissible." So now he had started the Nassau County Empire State Games for Physically Challenged. And that has been a successful program since the roll off from Mangano. Blakeman ran it this past spring, and it was a success. So it is growing again. I think it was about 750 to 800 participants this year. So that was great. Obviously, how I know Chris is through an organization called Downstate New York Adapt, which is a grassroots disability rights organization that pretty much advocates for a whole lot of different areas in the areas of voting, accessibility, legislative actions, CDPA and Medicaid working groups. That's just a few of the
I think you
groups
pretty
that
much
are,
got them all.
I think so too. But ADAPT has really given me the opportunity to grow. When I first started ADAPT, it was Long Island ADAPT about maybe 5 years ago. I started with Marie Hickey in the Long Island Center for Independent Living, where I was given a flyer and said, well, come and check this out. It's about people with disabilities. It's an organization that helps advocate. And at first I was really like, I don't know, this is not for me. I mean, I can advocate for myself, but how the hell am I going to advocate for others? Well, that was history. And now I'm actually going on my second national action in September to DC. And that is totally a life-changing experience. I think the most important thing for me right now is to be able to keep being independent and be able to stay in my home with my attendants. But home care is not being paid fairly. These aides are working crazy numbers of hours for a monetary fee that is less than what a person is working for at McDonald's. And that
That's
cannot
ridiculous.
that cannot be stand for any longer. We have been advocating for the past few years for a bill called Fair Pay for Home Care, in which this past budget season, the governor, Kathy Hochul, had decided that that piece of legislation was not important enough to make the budget for 2022. So we will continue to keep fighting for 2023. Some other volunteer work that I have done, I've worked for the US Open Golf Championships. I've done some
nice.
practice and caddy round committee appointments. I have been a sitting member of the Transportation Accessible Advisory Council of Nassau County for Nice Bus. I was actually the chair for a period of time there. I unfortunately had to step down due to trying to run for public office. I attempted twice to run for Nassau County legislator, but unfortunately, due to the process of the political realm, it's virtually impossible for an individual who is mobility impaired to get the required signatures that you need to put on a petition to get on the ballot. So while my ideas might be great, and while people may love what I'm saying and what I'm trying to do, the reality is this system is not accessible, and I will never get on the ballot until there's a way that we can change the status quo.
Is that because of the, I think that's because of like the door knocking and stuff you have to do because of the
exactly
different
you
places
need to
you have to
go
go and
door to door. Exactly.
hanging those little election flyers and stuff like that.
Exactly.
Makes it inaccessible. I guess a question that I want to ask is, uh, how would you say, I mean, you've talked a lot about your advocacy, but how would you say that's helped you, you know, with your disability? Has it helped you accept that you have a
Um,
disability a lot more, that you can, you know, do things and overcome things and all of that sort of stuff?
right. Well, I don't really let my disability get in the way of what I want to do. If I want to do something, I'm going to do it. Pretty much that's the way I've been all my life. I don't really look at myself as being disabled. I look at myself as being just a normal person with a little bit of a mobility issue. And
That's
I
right.
don't let that bother me. But when it comes down to the bolts and nuts of whether I want to be in my home or whether I want to be institutionalized, well, we already know that answer. Obviously, I want to be in my home. And if we don't advocate as a disabled body, then who will? That's my motto at this point. I mean, I just got accepted last week to a county appointment for the Nassau County Access, Accessibility Advisory Council on Disabilities just last Monday, and that committee is still being formed. So in a later portion or and maybe an addendum to this interview that we're doing, Chris, we can go back and address that once it starts rolling to give people maybe an idea of what that committee will look like and what the duties and stuff will be.
Yeah, we can do that. If you,
Um,
yeah, go ahead.
but as a whole, as a disabled individual, I mean, constantly I'm getting told that my advocacy is a problem. People in society think that I'm just a big mouth, that I like to start trouble, but in reality, that that can't that can't work in society, because if nobody opens their mouth, then these people are going to have a field day walking all over you. And that's why it's so important that if people speak up and let people know their feelings and what they're going through, because if they don't do that, you'll go stir crazy, and that's just the bottom line of the situation.
That's right.
So yeah, that's basically my life in a nutshell.
If you could give someone a piece of advice, kind of as a kind of final wrap up, what advice would you give them if they were listening and watching this video and were struggling with their disability? What advice could you give someone?
I would say that although things are not overly easy at all in life, that you still got to keep trucking on through, learn the ropes, know what you can and you can't do, and know what you're entitled to, because there is a world out there that does care, and there are people out there that do care, and there's certain people that will help if they are confronted and you express the need for assistance. You most likely will get it. So you never want to focus on your disability. I always focus on my abilities, but while medical challenges and physical challenges and all other kind of challenges surround us every day, we need to look and strive for the stars. So, I mean, with that being said, don't ever focus on your disability. Just continue on um, advocating and really trying to educate people, because that's part of the problem too, Chris. A lot of people are not educated in the world of disabilities, and they don't know, they don't understand. So until you educate them, people are just going to go with what they know and what they're told, even if they're just lies and blatantly untrue. But this is what people are being told. So we have to change that. It's our
That's
jobs to
true.
change that.
I think it's all about, educational awareness. Even, me as a blind person, educating people about my disability and kind of trying to squash all those misconceptions. You know, I think of it this way. I'm like everybody else. The only difference is I can't see. I have to do things differently, as do you. But you know, the I think the able-bodied public is it's difficult for them to understand sometimes, I guess, what we go through.
And I just want to close with one final thing. You know, we've gone through all kinds of legislations and all kinds of advocacy, all kinds of meetings with legislators. But the most important thing you've got to remember is you're not going to get everything on the first try. Nothing is going to happen on the first try. You just got to continually keep plugging. It might take a year, it might take 2 years, it might take 10 years, but you can't give up, because if you give up, then you're not going to accomplish anything and you're just going to be pretty miserable. So thank you, Chris, for the opportunity to do this interview. And
You're welcome, Gina. And for those of you that are watching this video right now, please like and give it a thumbs up, because that's how YouTube will get the word out to all of you. And if you're new to the channel, subscribe and ring the notification bell. Until next time, everybody, peace out.